Back again. I'm going to work through the tables that I didn't get in the first session, and we'll have time to get back through some more again. And I'll give people, I'll call 3 tables at a time, just to give you advance notice. So if we could go for tables 3 firstly, and then 8 and 10, if you can be ready to go, please.
Good afternoon, everybody, and congratulations to each and every one of you, and congratulations to yourself as well, once again. Listen, incredible stories, and it's lovely to see stories that are actually working. And you've done a fantastic job outlining it today, so you have as well. The one question that's come from the table is how, if you are looking to go into the court services and you're looking to go in and utilise this, how readily available is it? Basically, does a district court judge refer you on, or do you have to go into court, or what's the policy? How do you get into this? Because I think a lot of people won't know this. Is it only available in Dublin? And basically, it comes back to again, and again we're hearing this, the lack of services, the lack of facilities, the lack of money. Jesus Christ, I'll tell you, sorry about the language, but it's absolutely crazy what is going on in this country. And it's time that they fucking woke up and dealt with what they have to deal with.
Okay, so Anne, I think the question is around accessibility, availability. Okay. Yeah.
Well, the way into the drug court, and as I say, please don't commit a crime just so you can come and join us. But if you come before the ordinary district court, the judge there will see that your whatever charges are there before you, that behind all of that there's a drug problem, okay? So because of that, they can say to you, well, would you be interested in joining the drug treatment program? And if the person says yes, then they're referred to probation or straight to the drug treatment court, and a report is drawn up as to the suitability or not. Then when they get from there into the drug treatment court at the beginning, they're assessed at different levels. But to actually get there, you come into the district court. Now, I suppose the drug treatment court only deals with district court charges. So anything that's of the extreme violent nature or anything that's in the other higher courts isn't dealt with in the drug treatment court. Obviously, it's something that should be maybe down the line, could be, but certainly at the moment, that's as much as we can do. From the point of view of around the country, I would say 90% of the judges would like to be able to do something similar. And in many ways it might even be easier because we have 12 criminal courts in the DMD feeding the drug court. So there's an awful lot of people who might want to go, but maybe they're just not, as Paula said, in the right space at the right time, or they feel the programme is it's a very hard programme because you have to do all of this, as I said, like sleeping in a tent or whatever. It's not easy. So it's not for everybody, but it will work for people who, for some. But that's how you get into it.
Thank you. And Maeve or Fiona, if you want to add anything, please do.
No, I think Joanne has given the overview really of how participants come to us in the drug court. We would love for it to be rolled out around the country, but I suppose we want to have ourselves in check and everything of a high standard. It is of a high standard, but using the resources word again, to have that support there before it is rolled out nationwide. But again, as Judge Ryan has said, there are various streams of a court around the country that is aiming ultimately to do what we're doing to help people with addiction.
Okay, and I will bring all the panelists in and all the questions. Can I go to table 8, please?
Yeah, so just from our discussion in our table there, just in regards to the graduate program, what is the cost for that program, to put someone on that program versus sending someone to prison? And how many places are there? And what is the success rate as well?
I will bring Paula just from a personal perspective, but Maeve or Fiona, do you want to give it some context on costings?
Costings, we wouldn't have the overall cost, but to come on board, we put people through the resources and the systems that are already there. And from, I suppose, a success rate, it's a piece that I'm not too long involved with the court, and I feel it's this missing part that's been, that people don't hear the success that the court has. It's just the amount of graduates that we have. But all along the way, there's so much success stories. I've mentioned that when you move between our phases, you receive a certificate. That means you've achieved something. Somebody might come to us and they've never achieved a certificate in their life, and they're handed something. It's an acknowledgement of what they've achieved, the steps they've taken in their own life. We have had, to date, 98 graduates. But as I said, it's just that missing piece that I would love to capture, and it's something I'd love to work on now going forward.
And just on the question, sorry, apologies. Just on the question, we will, the panelists may not necessarily have the financial information, but we will get that for you in terms of, a year prison sentence versus, a pathway this way, because it's a very good question. But could I just flip the question a little bit, please, to Paula, and just like the human costs of not going through this process, of going through some alternative process that you described. Just there's a human cost of
there's definitely a human cost. But when it comes to success in that in drug courts, I get saying 98, and some people probably say 98. But if you think about the people who've been through it in all ways, like at that time in their life, they could have been sent to prison. Like that human cost, like as I was talking about earlier, people losing their children when they go into prison and all, and then when they get out, whereas the job that they have, even to try and gain back that responsibility. There's so much of a human cost. It's not just about putting people into prison or giving them an alternative to it. It's about sort of keeping families together and all, whereas that doesn't happen if somebody is automatically locked up. We're having a conversation earlier about how, I think in another group that was there was talking about how there was a court case and a judge had to, a farmer had to attend to his calf or something, and he was told to come back another day to court. Mothers don't get that option when they go to court. If they're sent to prison, their kids could be left standing in the schoolyard. So then tussle is called, all that and all. And then if they do have a home as well, they end up then when they get out of prison, the home could be gone. They can't get their children back unless they have a stable home. So it's a roller coaster that just keeps going around and around. So when there's alternatives to prison, where people can go, whether they go through and fully graduate or not, if it's keeping them stable for that time, then that's a success in itself. I think there's too much emphasis put on how many numbers attend services, how many people get through it completely. Think about the people, even recovery is not just about getting drug free. Recovery is about making a positive change in your life, and sometimes them positive changes may not go right through that you'll finish a whole program and go to a graduation piece. It may be just making them positive changes. So that's the human side of it. It's not just about numbers, it's not just about statistics. And there's way too much emphasis when it comes to drug treatment, way too much emphasis put on numbers and not enough put on putting resources in to make sure that people have the best possible outcomes, but realistic outcomes.
Thank you. But again, to the questioner at the table, we will ask the team to try put some costings of the process versus prison costs. I'm going to go to table 10, but then if tables 5, 12 and 14 can be ready, please. Table 10.
Hi, thank you all. So our questions were kind of covered. We were just asking about the mainstream or widespread of the drug courts around Ireland, and we also were wondering about the kind of eligibility or the offences that are eligible for the court. But I was wondering if I could ask Judge Anne Ryan about the judge training and how we actually, what stage are we at, and how we actually make that mandatory for all judges.
Well, there is no judge training. You're on a wing and a prayer, really. And you just learn as you go along, much to probably all the people appearing in front of us are sort of saying, where are they going? But without a doubt, it should be part of every judge's training. And it doesn't suit everybody. I mean, I know colleagues who really would never want to run the drug treatment court. It isn't within their kind of way of doing things. And not that they don't use a sort of a therapeutic way within their own court, but it's not... You know, as a judge, as Anthony was saying, in the drug treatment court, you're part of a team. You're working in a non-adversarial way with all the participants. They become you become friends with them. It's not a sort of a them and us. We're all the same, working towards the same thing. And it makes such a difference. But without a doubt, all judges need training, some sort of way, you know, to be able to do this the right way and not be sort of on a wing and a prayer. But I think, you know, there's so many judges around the country who would love to do it. And in ways it's easier for them because maybe they're the referring judge to a treatment program. So they're even going to be more au fait with the person that they're involved with than the drug treatment court in Dublin, because you've got so many different courts feeding in into the one drug treatment court. I suppose maybe I think slightly differently to Maeve, that I don't know that I'd wait for the one in Dublin to become really good before I'd put it around the country. I'd let everybody around the country have a go, see how they're getting on, and pool our, you know, how it's working for some and not working for others. Because there's great innovation out there, but we need to just, I mean, we're a very small country. There's no reason why we couldn't do it. And I'm sure we'd learn from others if we did get a sort of more of a linked up system.
Thank you. Anne, if I can go to tables 5 now, isn't it? Have I got it 5? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you and good morning. I think it's probably worth just saying as well that over this morning and over the last number of weeks, there are occasions where there's a lot of confusion about what people are saying and what people are presenting, and I wanted to commend you this morning. I certainly personally felt that this was a pocket of positivity and a shining light of an example of what works. So thank you for that. And our question is, what is or what would be needed to scale this up around the country? Have you done an assessment of that? And I think maybe Judge Anne.
Not really. I mean, I've spoken to colleagues, and I suppose I've been retired now for over 2 years, and I do know that in Dundalk, we'll say there's another system, but, and as I mentioned, Judge Olin Kelleher, I mean, he could see that cocaine was a massive problem coming into his court. And at the moment, he's 189 people on that programme, which is phenomenal. But that's a totally different setup to what we're dealing with in Dublin, because they're mostly employed people, all on cocaine, who just want to get off it, first-time users. And I said to him, how can you ask people for €800 like that? And he said, I don't even ask them how much they spend on cocaine. If they want to get off it, they pay me the €800. I give that to Coolmine, and they fund the addiction counsellors. And it works. It really works down there. So I think, you know, each area probably has different sort of problems, and each judge with a team need to sort of go with what is the main necessity in that particular area. So, like, we would really have a very disadvantaged group. So it would be slightly different, and our programme is very clearly set out what they have to do. Whereas, you know, around the country, it may be different in rural areas. I mean, I was in a very small town the other day, really a village, and I was talking to one of the fishermen, and he just said to me, he didn't know it had anything to do with anything, and he just said, you know, you can get cocaine here easier than you can get a bag of chips. And like, I'm in the middle of nowhere, you know, and it just shows. So different areas need different things, and I think it's terribly important that they're allowed work on within the team structure that they have there to see what is necessary, and then we can all link in with one another, you know.
Sorry, but who's the they? When you say different structures and different places, one of the things we see all the time is the lack of coordination.
Yeah.
So it has to be.
Who's the they?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I suppose the they, from a court's point of view, would be the court service as the main, like, say, Maeve is our coordinator. So she coordinates all the various groups, the stakeholders, if we like, and what happens. And she's kind of the main, how would you call it? Operations. Yeah. So it would be the court service, really, I suppose, around the country. And then they, together, I suppose, with the judge in each court, would work with them to see maybe the Gardaí as well, or, you know, different people in each area. But the court service would be the main person, I suppose, yeah. Just
before I go to table 12, Andrew, can I just ask you simply, you're working in the service now. You're working in the service now. Yeah. Just give us a sense of how many people are working there on a daily basis with you or alongside you, or is it just you? Just give us a sense of on a daily operational basis.
There's about I think there's about 7 or 8 working in our project in where we are in the Parnell in the education part. I don't know how many is actually on the team. And just to answer the question, look, it's a pity like there is not more judges that's on board, and I'd love this to be everywhere. I'd actually love it to be everywhere, you know, because let's be honest here, drugs ain't going away. Let's be honest, right? And Judge Anne Ryan said it there, like the people taking cocaine, you'd be surprised. You probably wouldn't be surprised the people are taking cocaine. Cocaine is really acceptable now. Unfortunately, that's the way it is with everybody. You know, they're taking it. Yeah, it's everywhere. There's vast amounts of money in drugs, and I would love this to go nationwide. You know, and judges because the judges see the same people that's coming in and out of the court from a drug addiction. They know them. They get to know them. And like someone answered it down there, how much is it to go to prison? I don't know where it is to go to prison, probably for a year. I don't know if it's 90,000 to go to prison for a year. You know, like that's what's happening with people that take drugs. They're in and out, in and out, in and out. They're back out in a couple of more months, and it's like the merry-go-round, and they're doing the same thing again. And the judges see all this. Do you know what I mean? So if this was set up all over, it'd be absolutely fantastic. You know, and our program is just a small little program in Parnell Square. And we just try our best, as I said. We try our best with them because we deal with people, as Judge Anne Ryan says, that are sleeping around in tents, and some of them just don't even get any sleep in the hostels. And the stories he tell you, look, I was up all night, I couldn't get a sleep, and then they're trying to come into us to have a day with us and stuff like that, you know. Like, Paul has said it. What is success? How do you measure it? I read a bit of it out. There it is there. Now, to all of us sitting in this room, that's only something, that's huge to him. People come into us and don't even have a doctor, can't look after themselves with their teeth. We go and provide that and get that for them. That is huge to them. Absolutely huge. Some people don't graduate, but they graduate halfway through and probably just stay stable on their methadone. If that's not success, they don't commit crime, well then I don't know what. My success, obviously I'd love everybody to go through the programme and get absence from all drugs and not take it in, but that's not the reality. I'm not living in the real world. It doesn't happen. Do you know what I mean? A couple of them do come in and get it. You know, so. Okay.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
Go.
Andrew said to me to start, I'm uncomfortable answering questions at the table. That was a really powerful response. Can I go to table 12, please?
Why is there not enough funding for the drug courts despite being proven to work, and why are the drug courts not statutory?
Did you get it? Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's exactly the same question that I ask and have been asking for years. And every single politician who ever came into the drug court was, you know, from the highest down along, you know, we were told we'd be getting all sorts of money and funding, and it was great, and it was this, that, and the other. Never, ever saw the light of day. And as I said in my presentation, at the same time, there's no government will ever pull it, because if they did, it would look absolutely politically incorrect. So, I don't know, something like this, I'm just hoping that along the line, people will hear about it and see that there is a value, because not everybody can go through the health-led approach, which is wonderful, but there needs to be something when that doesn't work, and we're the something that's there when that doesn't work. And I would hope that it will be funded.
And can I just ask you, while Cathal has just prompted me here as well, the Judicial Council, do they have any view in terms of advocating or progressing this or helping it?
I would hope they will. Now, they've only just come on board really since I have retired, so I can't give you the update on what they're doing at the moment, but certainly I think you know, if we put more pressure on the judiciary as a whole, the Judicial Council should certainly run with it.
Thank you. Table 14.
Our question is for Anne Ryan, and it is, if a defendant is in front of you for, say, burglary, to fund a drug habit, how would you deal with the punitive element of the burglary offence, bearing in mind the victim?
Very good question. There are a lot of factors when somebody comes before you that you have to consider. Say there's a burglary and he pleads guilty, and if more than likely you'll probably put it back for a probation service to get more insight into that particular person, and that report would come back before the court, and you would also, you know, every crime, be it against a person or a community or a shop or something like that, there is a victim, and that victim's voice must be taken into consideration when you're dealing with something. And that's another part of the therapeutic, I suppose, jurisprudence of the courts, is a thing called restorative justice, which I'm not going to go into today because that is a huge part of how we work. And in terms of that, if you had somebody who, I'll give you an example. There was, when I was in the children's court, there was a young fella who broke into an old lady's house down the road, and he stole some money or something anyway, and the poor lady was terribly traumatized. But using that process, you can say to the old lady, would you meet up with this guy in a controlled environment, and he could understand what happened to you, and you could, you know, we could work it out and then get the punishment to fit the crime. And she was very good, because a lot of people don't want to meet the perpetrator, and somebody will stand in their stead. But she did, and she got to know him, and they became great buddies. And I don't know what they do now, but all I know, for weeks and weeks afterwards, he cut her grass every single week. So, like, you know, he began to understand that what he had done, at the end of the day, somebody suffered greatly, and they were able to work it out between them. But not everybody, obviously, is going to be like that lady. So there are other ways and means. There's so many different ways of dealing with things, but more than likely in the district court, and I know probably you don't believe this, but the last resort is to send somebody to prison, because for a start, any district court sentence that you give somebody, they're going to serve a third of it maybe, and they're in and out. It does nothing to anybody. But if it is a situation that you feel that this was, you know, there's no remorse, the victim has been, you know, badly traumatized, there are lots of previous convictions, regardless of the addiction, maybe the right answer is to send that person to prison. And maybe that is what you do. And you'll find that they have not just one offence, but there might be several, so they can have up to 2 years if they've more than one. But that is the last resort. Every other aspect you will try and take into account before you do, but the victim is very important.
Thank you. And my apologies to table one, because you're last, but because you're last and very compliant, I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask 2 questions. If you have to.
So for Judge Anne Ryan, so if in the earlier presentations has shown that drug demand and supply will continue, and that the person does not rehabilitate people using drugs, do you think decriminalization or legalization is needed in Ireland?
Sorry, I didn't quite get the end of what you said there.
Okay, so that the prison that does not rehabilitate people using drugs. So do you think decriminalization or legalization is needed in Ireland?
So it's a question whether decriminalisation, legalisation, and then I'll come to Paula as well. So
Paula, do you want to answer
yeah,
that?
Paula, you go first.
Oh, I'll go. I'll gladly go on this one. For a start, I think people who use drugs should never be criminalised, and I do get, like, with drug courts and all, it does take all that into consideration. But do I feel decriminalisation is fair enough? No, because I think as long as we haven't got a regulated model of drugs, people are dying on the streets. People are sleeping in doorways, and until all that is, like, that structural inequality, structural violence, all that is dealt with, we're always going to have a huge drug issue. And drugs are here, they're not going anywhere. But with a regulated model, you can support people to use drugs in a safe manner. Like when you look at safe injection facilities, people say you're enabling people to use drugs. Yeah, you are. You're enabling them to use drugs in a safe manner. Do you know, like, you're saving lives. If you look at them anywhere around the world, like countries like Germany who have heroin-assisted treatments, they have great success rates in them. Their retention rates are higher than methadone clinics. The retention rates for services, and as well as that, if you're providing safe drugs, you're also taking that criminal activity away from many young people to be groomed into. So I was actually glad someone asked that question, because it's something I'm passionate about. But yeah, I personally think that the only way to deal with the drugs issue is to look at a regulation model. But obviously decriminalisation will be the first step, because you shouldn't be criminalising people, because what you're basically doing is criminalising trauma. You know, because the majority of us that have used drugs have had huge trauma in their lives. We're living in communities that have had huge structural trauma. So that all needs to be dealt with. But I will also say, to go a bit further than regulation, there's no point in doing that without putting a spent convictions bill for people who, like, if you consider young people being groomed into ganglands, you know, Sean Redden was talking earlier about the Greentown report and all, like, that's all, it's basically human trafficking of young people in these communities, and it's predominantly working class communities, predominantly poor communities that are affected more in it. So there needs to be policies put in place, but there's no point in doing that without doing a spent convictions bill, because a lot of the young people in them communities already have convictions. A lot of the people who use drugs already have convictions. Like, if you go back to when homosexuality in Ireland became legal, that was 30 years ago. They're only now, this year, talking about removing them criminal convictions for people. So they're going to continue to have barriers in their way until, my phone is ringing, oh God, until something is done. Thanks.
It's probably RTE, you never know. Maeve, have any view, like, you're working in the court service, but any, or Fiona, any view on if something needs to change, the issue of decriminalisation, just any views, any comments you'd like to make?
No, I think more resources and more services are needed to address, you know, poverty, marginalisation and homelessness, and why that's happening, and, you know, meeting the people where they're at in their communities and looking at and asking the question, why is what's happening?
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Right there. Okay, table one, we're going to start the next session with you again. If you have a second question, please do. I can come back to you if you're not ready to go. I can come back to you in a couple of minutes, a few minutes. Do you have another question? No? Okay. I was giving you a bonus there, but not ready to take it. Eh? So I'm going to go to table 9, 11, 14, and try get the three of you in if I can. We're getting tight, but table 9, please. I have got through every table.
We did have a question, but I think it's been answered already.
That's fine. That's good. Thank you. Table 11, anything else you'd like to comment? Maybe we're just coming to a natural close in this session. Can I just ask, anybody want to put a hand up if there's anything just hanging in the air you'd like to put to the panel? Please just put your hand up on a call. Table 4. Sorry. There's Mike there. There you go.
Thank you. Just a quick question for Paula. You said that when an individual is in front of the drug treatment court, you are able to speak yourself. Does one need legal representation also, or is it removing?
It removes that. Like when you're in the district court and you're being obviously sent over to the drug courts, you'll have your solicitor there. But when you go to the drug courts, it's quite a comfortable space. In fairness, that you go in your own. You don't feel the need to. So you don't have to be standing there with a solicitor, and you're able to use your own voice. Whereas when you're just in the normal courts, you don't have your own voice, and you're not encouraged to use your own voice anyway. Do you know, like I've know people who the only way that they can get their own voice through, say, on a hearing or something, is to actually write a letter and ask the solicitor to give it to the judge. Because you'll see, if you're ever in a court, if someone tries to talk, they're constantly being shh, shh, shh. Like, and then you expect them to go on and do brilliant, like, you know, and you're like, sorry for me scepticism sometimes, but yeah, it's a different approach, you know, when you go in and you're able to actually talk for yourself. Like, it's like we're seen as people who use drugs that we're not capable of talking. We couldn't have anything up there that could actually contribute to anything when we're actually quite intelligent people. If you consider people, how they get through their addiction, we're quite resilient. Do you know what I mean? We've got through a lot of trauma. Yes, we've used drugs to cope with that, but we're very resilient people, and I think society forgets that.
Sorry, I just want to say to the question, the drug court is a unique programme. And I explained it when I was standing up there of what, like, as Paula says this there, if what Judge Horton came down and says to me and asked me how I was.
Yeah.
You won't get that in a district court or any other court, you know. So this to ask you, are you keeping up your appointments and how was your day and stuff like that? And that's huge, like, because they're human beings that make mistakes, you know. They come from trauma, as Paula says, and they come from all of that, you know. So it is a unique problem.
Okay, 2 really quick fire questions. There's no meeting at your time. I want to give you a table. Table 2? Table 2. Sorry, apologies. There you go.
Thanks very much. Obviously, we're all here at looking, reforming the whole policy and law and all that. And I'm just wondering, the legal system is renowned for slow change. You mentioned, Paul, that it's 30 years since piece of legislation came into force. Realistically, if we were to make decisions to change now, how quickly would law reform actually take place?
I have no idea. How long is a piece
Yeah.
of string?
Sorry, no, go ahead. And we do have I think the question will be posed really well tomorrow, where we have a lot of the legal issues and legal debate. I mean, Anne has her own experience, but it's a very good one for, if you can hold for tomorrow. Last question, please. Yeah, go ahead, table 5.
There is a theme recurrent to drug problem. It's trauma, coming from background of trauma. And I was wondering if instead of getting to the drug court to have a bit of compassion and empathy, would it be not possible to liaise with TUSLA, for example, to have early detection of trauma to avoid to fall back into drugs?
Yeah, I might ask Paula and Andrew if any comments.
From what I've worked in women's services and my experience, a lot of the time, while there are some amazing social workers there, sometimes engaging with trauma exacerbates that trauma. You know, like engaging with TUSLA, you know, makes that trauma worse, because that's a lot of pressure put on a woman, because women, like, addiction affects all people, like, biologically the same way. Socially, no. Women are treated much harsher, women are judged much harsher, and we're expected to make huge leaps in unrealistic time. Do you know, so, like, there's so many, like, if you consider someone, all these sort of barriers in their way, do you know what I mean, their addictions in their way, dealing with their trauma. Like, 'cause I know personally, I didn't come out of addiction until I actually dealt with my trauma. That led me into that, do you know, addiction. And that was when things started to change for me, and which is why I did come back to the drug courts that time, because I was starting to make changes in my life. But the added pressure of TUSLA being involved is a huge fear. Like, I've worked in a women's project, amazing project. They've done a presentation. It was last month, the month before, the SAIL project, and absolutely amazing. They were the ones that were singing for us. But I worked there, and I've seen women who will wait until their children are 17, 18 before they'll actually reach out for support and reach out, because of that fear. Because it's automatically assumed that if a woman is in addiction, she couldn't be a good mother. I was in addiction, I was an amazing mother to my child. The women I've worked with in the SAIL project, amazing mothers to their children. It's not an automatic given that if someone's using drugs, they're a bad mother. So TUSLA can make the problem so much worse. And don't get me wrong, if you get the right social worker, and I think lately social workers as well are being trained to have a lot more empathy, to have a lot more understanding of these issues. But if you happen to get a judgmental social worker, it's not a good space to be in, and it only ends up feeding into that trauma and making your addiction go worse and worse and worse and deepen, and it makes you isolate and hide as well. So it can help in some cases, but it can also make it a lot worse.
Okay. Thank you, Paula. And look, I think this piece, I probably have to hold now, I think this piece has been a very coherent piece, very simple, explained, and through the whole process between all the panellists, well done and thanks. If you can just show appreciation for it, really very much. So I would like to give yourselves now, lunch is scheduled for 12:45, but for the next 15-20 minutes, if you could at your table, just draw reflections. What have you heard that's working? Something strikes me that this is something that may feature for us later on when we start to sit down and think about recommendations, but that's up to yourselves. Please have a reflection here now on just what works, what might be worth recommending on. Thank you.